morning or afternoon or evening, wherever in the world you might be. My name is Susan Eklund, and I am the co-founder and president of Vision Front Coaching. The other half of the organization you see on your screen is my husband, Steve, and he will be presenting a little later today. So as people get signed in this morning, I want to give people time. I wanted to go over just a couple little housekeeping things. First of all, our website is in the chat, www.visionfrontcoaching.com. If you want to find out more about us, if you'd like to schedule a call to talk to us, there is a link there. Feel free to go to it at any time. Secondly, if any questions come up while we're on the call, while Steve is teaching, please put them into the chat. We've allowed it some time on day 3 to go over all your questions, give you some answers. So the Q&A is on day 3. That being said, we are teaching for 3 days, today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Our promise to you is it will be 60 minutes or less. So you know how to schedule your day, and we will hold ourselves to that. So the title of the webinar, Life Unleashed. What does that mean to you? Life unleashed, off the chain, right? Our lives were meant to be abundant and prosperous, to be lived with purpose. We were never meant to be in the same routine day after day, right? To be in prisons of our own making. We do the same thing day in and day out, and we're stuck, and we get stuck. So Life Unleashed has been brought to you to help you break free of that, to give you new ways to think, maybe ways you've never thought of before about how to move forward in your life, how to take your life from ordinary to extraordinary. Because isn't that really what we all want? An extraordinary life that we live and we eat up every minute, and we're passionate about life when we wake up each day. Every day is truly a gift. It's ours to live. So I know today that Steve has a little longer lesson, not greater than 60 minutes. So I'm going to pass it over to him because I don't want to spend any more time telling you about what's going to be happening today. Let's just get right to it. Steve, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Hello, everyone. Let me set up my screen here and give me a yes that you can see everything. Thank you. So I want to help you unlock your potential today, and I want to help you move towards whatever dreams and goals you have. Everybody has a dream. They have a goal. They have fantasies of things that they want to accomplish. And the worst thing could possibly be you get to the end time of your life and you look back and you regret that there were things you didn't do. The information I'm going to share with you today has had a great impact on my life, not only in the past, but it continues to do so every day. What I'm going to share, I put into practice each and every day. And I'm going to talk about 2 very important things today. Self-talk, that inner conversation that goes on in our own minds, and goals. Why goals? What's a good goal? What's a bad goal? And why do we have them in the first place? You know, when you look at the world today, there is so much strife. We've got wars, we've got political divides, economic pressures that come and go. Social media is impacting us and bombarding us from every corner. So I ask you, do you ever get distracted? Do you ever feel that you've lost your discipline or your focus in working towards a goal? Well, that's the human condition today. It's what we face, and it's the reality in today's world. But I want you to understand something. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you, so don't beat yourself up. No breakthrough is going to come by you constantly having an inner conversation where you're harsh on yourself. You have to have a positive outlook on things to have a positive result in your life. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And there's a word I want you to think about today that you're going to hear repeatedly throughout the presentation. And that word is repetition. I'd like you to tattoo that on the forefront of your brain. Repetition. It was just 2 days ago that most of us sat and watched the Super Bowl. And obviously, those are highly trained athletes that were playing at the very top of their game, but they just didn't show up and play on Sunday. They began at training camp back in July and really throughout the year, but in July as a team, they came together and started practicing over and over and over. And they did that throughout the year between every game. When they played the AFC NFC championship games, they didn't spend 2 weeks before the Super Bowl kind of hanging out in Las Vegas. They were practicing, knowing that any one play could be the tipping point in the game. So repetition is important. That's why athletes are great. They practice. That's how you're going to be great. You can't think about things and then put them by the wayside and expect them to happen. You have to practice, and you have to let your imagination open up and take over. Albert Einstein once said, logic will take you from A to B, but imagination will take you everywhere. And when we talk about our goals today, you're going to see where self talk, your goals, and imagination and those creative forces in you come together and create a very powerful program for you that'll put you on your pathway to attaining your goal. So you see on the screen Mount Everest. Your goal is your Mount Everest, whatever that goal may be. And if you look at that picture, the prayer flag's there in the foreground and the summit in the background. Looks like it's fairly close, doesn't it? That's actually 43 miles, both horizontally and vertically, to go from base camp where all the teams gather and prepare and acclimatize and get ready for their assault on the summit. But yet they still have 43 miles to go over the harshest terrain, some of the toughest conditions the world can possibly offer. And that's your journey towards your goal. You're going to face some tough conditions. You're going to go over some rough terrain. But when you reach the summit and you look back down at the path and the journey you've come on, you're going to realize it's all worth it. You see, it's all about mindset. It's all about how you see yourself. Do you see yourself that you portray to others the way you want to be? Or do you wish you portrayed yourself differently? Do you wish your outward projection was different? Because what you think in your mind is what comes out outwardly in your being. If you're thinking negative, you're attracting and you're probably carrying a negative persona. And conversely, if it's positive, it's positive. But do you see yourself playing big in what you do? Do you see yourself stepping up and being a leader? Or do you wait back in the wings, let other people step forward, let other people get the credit? And then afterwards, you regret the fact that you didn't step forward. You didn't mention the things you wanted to say. You let others do it. You see, you have a choice. And a lot of it's all about your self-image. It's about that confidence within yourself. You see, you're living a movie right now, and that movie is your life. But so many people see themselves as an extra in their own movie. But you're not. You need to lead your movie and step up to the forefront. Because there's no one you talk to more in your life than anybody else than yourself. That's the human indulgence and the habit that we have. We talk to ourselves more than we'll ever talk to anybody else in our life. Neville Goddard stated that most of us are totally unaware of the fact that our inner conversations are the cause of the circumstances in our lives. In other words, what you think is what you're going to receive. You see, your actions are going to follow the talk tracks from your own inner conversations. And if your talk track is belittling, self-deprecating, if you're putting yourself down, or you're even downright means to yourself, that's the outward projection you're getting from yourself. But if you're empowering, if you're uplifting, you're affirming, that too is what you're giving off. There's a very, very vast difference between the two. So to change your results, to go for your goal, and to change the way you are progressing towards your goal, we first have to change those thoughts. Your view of yourself has to be a redirected pathway that's going to move you in the momentum towards your goal. The image you have of the world comes through that inner speech. Your mind is a treasure trove of infinite conversations that can go on. When you stop and think about it, laying in bed alone at night with your thoughts, commuting to work alone in your thoughts, perhaps sitting in the office daydreaming alone in your thoughts, watching TV, and you look up and realize the whole program has gone by. I don't even remember one thing about it because I was alone in my thoughts. We're thinking all the time, and those mental conversations are happening. But the person that can harness that creative power and that inner talk are the people that are going to start to move rapidly towards their goals. But if you don't have control of that, you're going to unconsciously continue down the pathway you're on today that perhaps you're not happy with. You have an identity. Your identity is created by the conversations you have inside your body and your mind. And it's what you attract in life. If you try to change the world without changing your thoughts, you're struggling against the very nature of things. That can't happen. Worse are the people that go around trying to change their circumstances or their disappointments, and they're not seeing that it's caused by their own selves and how they're thinking. Those are the people that tend to go around blaming others, blaming circumstances, blaming conditions for the situation they find themselves in. They rarely ever look inward and see that it's a result of themselves. Their belief, sadly, is a wrong determination. So let me illustrate this point. So in Neville's book, Mental Diets, he talks about a woman that approached him, and she was struggling at work. Her boss, she felt, was very negative, very unfair, that he'd walk by her and ignore her, but when he would stop, he'd have something to say about her performance that wasn't good. When she'd walk by him, he'd rarely acknowledge her. If he did, it would be to say something about her. She was convinced every time he passed that he was thinking negative thoughts about her. And she thought about it all day long. She thought about it at night. She thought about it on her commute. And when she shared this with Goddard, he said, it sounds like we may have to change first the mental conversation in your mind. Would you agree that you think about these imaginary conversations with your boss throughout the day? And she said, I do. He says, let's change the context of those thoughts. Let's make them positive. Let's forget about him being negative towards you. Let's think of him being powerful and empowering and lifting you up and affirming you. So she went ahead and started doing that. She agreed she'd try that. And what she found is over a short course of time, her boss seemed to reverse his attitude towards her. He did become affirming. He became positive. He became supportive and encouraging. He actually smiled when he'd walk by her, when she'd walk by him. You see, what she did not realize was her inner thoughts of picturing him being rude to her was coming out of her. That negative was coming off of her. She probably didn't realize she was getting that same vibe and giving off that same vibe to other people. But when she changed those thoughts, her persona changed, her outward appearance became positive, and she started to attract positive. He probably saw her smile for the first time and smiled back. He started to see a change in her, and he started to align with that. So it's proof positive that our thoughts can change the course of conditions around us. We have that control. And she reported back to Neville that she was having the time of her life. She realized that she was the root cause of her concerns. So you see, if we allow that negative inner self-talk, we expect things to change, they're not going to. Our mental conversations, when you have them, they don't fall back to the past. Your mental conversations permeate forward and advance forward and spread forth in our lives. Who you are going to be in the next few days is what you're thinking right now. And that's something that we have to change. How many times have you ever robbed yourself of getting to know somebody initially and liking them? Let's say a new coworker comes to work, or you're part of a group and somebody new joins. And the first time you see them, you decide, I don't like them. I don't like him. I don't like her. I'm just not going to mesh with them. And you cop a mental attitude that's negative because your inner self-talk decided they didn't like that person. I have some friends that recently got married, and it was both their second marriages. It wasn't the first. And when they were first introduced in a group with friends, she did not like him. She decided he looks arrogant. He seems all about himself. I want nothing to do with this guy. And he even says to me, he's a good friend of mine, that the first time he tried to talk to her, she blew him off like she wanted him to drop dead. And her friends encouraged her that, hey, you're reading this all wrong. He's not that kind of person. That's absolutely the wrong approach. So through some more interaction with friends, they had a chance to talk some more, and she kind of realized, he's not all that bad. Not all that bad led to some dates, and those dates led to an engagement, and the engagement led to a marriage, and they're happy people today. But how many times in our lives do we initially see somebody and make an immediate decision that we like or dislike them, and we haven't even had a chance to know them? That's a negative inner self-talk happening. You see, the art of practicing that negative self-talk is going to help you transform your goals into dreams. Your goals are creative energies. They start off in the mental, then they move down into the emotional, then they become physical, then they become attainable. And there's a process you go through to do that. I'm going to share that with you in a minute. But the reality is, and know this, the opportunities in your life are endless. Whatever goals you have, whatever fantasized goals you can think of today, if you dream it, you can do it. There's nothing that can stop you from moving forward in your goals. So I ask you, what is your goal? And more importantly, does your inner self-talk match your goal? It has to, or your goal won't be achieved. You can't have a lofty goal and negative inner self-talk and think you're going to go reach that goal. That will not happen, I can tell you right now. And for so many people, if you've had goals that have fallen by the wayside time and time and time again, it is because your inner self-talk is not in alignment with your goal. It just won't happen. But as you control your inner self-talk, you match it to your desires, you'll become clear in your imagination, and the intention of your goal will open itself up to you. Your inner talk will now carry you toward the goal and help your dreams become fulfilled. Remember what I said with Einstein, imagination will take you anywhere. Your imagination will open up when you align your talk and your goal. You see, there's two things that our Creator bestowed upon us that no other creature on the planet has. We have a mind and we have speech. And with the gift of mind and speech, when we bring these two together, we can create conditions and circumstances in our lives at like nothing before. And anything that's gone on before us that's negative, we can rewrite the story. A lot of you sit there today and say, yeah, but you don't know what I've been through. You don't know how bad I've had it. You don't know the things that have happened to me. And all I can tell you there is you're right, but I say stop. Stop right there. Whatever has happened to you, whatever has occurred, you have to let that go by the wayside. We can't change it, but we can move forward from it. We can start today to write a new story going forward. You create your future, and you're going to start creating that future by your internal conversations. So let's talk about goals. Why do we have goals? What's the purpose of goals? If I ask you why goals, most people would say it's to get more, it's to have more. That's not what goals are about. Goals are about helping us grow, helping us become better, bigger at what we do, greater beings. Goals are to help us grow. Why do corporations set goals? I can't tell you how many years I sat and pored over budgets and sat there looking at our revenues and our expenses and our head count and how much product we're going to move, looking at our growth. We're going to grow 4% this year, or 8 or 10. Why do companies have goals like that? It's easy. It's to grow. Goals are to grow. If they hit their goals, if they hit their projections, the company is growing. It's how they measure that growth. No different in our lives. We have goals as individuals to help us grow. If I walk down any street in the world, a crowded boulevard like the one you see, and I walk up to a random person and were to ask them, what are your goals? There's a good chance that almost everybody would look at me and go, well, what do you mean? If by chance I got somebody that could tell me their goal, I would ask them, do you have it written down? Do you have it written down? You carry it with you? Do you have it posted, let's say, on a mirror in your bathroom so you see it in the morning and you wake up before you go to bed at night? Maybe it's on your dashboard in your car, or you've got it posted in the office at work. Do you do that? And most people, again, would say, well, why would I do that? What do you mean? You see, if our goal isn't a burning desire, if it's not a burning obsession, if it's not something that we're looking at every moment of the day and thinking about multiple times, it's really more of a passing thought than it is a goal. But if you understand what I'm talking about, of aligning your talk with your goal and a visionary view of your goal, you can start bringing them together. You'd be successful in attaining your goals. But most people say, so well, how do you measure the success? How do I measure success of my goal? Earl Nightingale stated that success is a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. To put that into layman's terms, success is a progressive realization, the journey of a worthy ideal, a goal. Success is a progressive journey to a worthy goal. Earl Nightingale was the mentor to Susan and I's mentor, who was Bob Proctor. Bob studied under Earl. We studied under Bob. Earl studied under Napoleon Hill, who wrote the famous book, Think and Grow Rich. Not Think and Grow Rich necessarily monetarily, that's a part of it, but think and grow rich in your life, yourself, your belief in yourself, your relationships. He was mentored by Andrew Carnegie, the first billionaire in the industrial age, transforming the 1800s into the 1900s. And he challenged Napoleon to write the book. You see, all of this is coming forth from many, many years of people that have done this, that have followed the practices I'm going to share with you. This is all tried and true and tested and has been done for centuries. But you see, the problem with people today, it's conformity. So many people just, they go with the flow. It is what it is. And an interesting story of that, we had a guy working on our well. We have an irrigation system here. And instead of it being on city water, we have a well down to the aquifer. And he was working on the well, and we were chatting, and I asked him how he got into the well business. And he said, well, my daddy was a well man. My granddaddy before him was a well man, and my great granddaddy started the whole process. And now I even have my son doing this, and most likely he's going to be a well man. And I said, why a well man? Did you ever want to do anything else? He goes, I do. There's a lot of things I'd like to do, but this is my lot in life. This is who I am. This is what I'll always be. And you see, a lot of people allow outside influences, people, circumstances, geography, to determine who they are. They don't take control and say, no, this is what I want to be. The people that succeed, the people that make a difference and that you see attaining their goals, that you look back and you marvel at the fact that they've become so successful, they're the I am people. They're the ones sitting back saying, I am going to do this. I will do this. I am going to make this dream come true. There's a deliberateness in their attitude. If the Napoleon, French emperor and military commander, the French commander Napoleon once said, I only see my objective. All obstacles must give way. Think about that. I only see my objective, my goal. All obstacles must give way. In other words, I'm going to attain my goal regardless of what's in the way. Whatever's in the way has got to go. When I was a manager for so many years, and my last role in the corporate world was president and COO of a division of a Fortune 500 company, I used to always tell my employees that my job is to block and tackle and knock down the barriers that get in the way of you doing your job. You just point them out, I'll take care of them for you. And I think that's why we had a lot of success in the teams that I managed, because they knew that I was watching their back. They knew that I would do what they asked me to do, but I cleared the path for them to be better at what they did. And that's where a team comes together. But it's no different in our lives. If you have a goal and your vision is stuck on that goal and no obstacle is going to stop you from attaining it, you're well on your way. That difference is that deliberateness. It's that focus. It's that purpose on one's goals. People that know where they're going succeed. So you're building a dream. The dream begins with you. I want to indulge you a moment with a story here. So in June, Susan and I will have been married 40 years. And it seems hard to say that because we're just kids. But 40 years ago, when we were 20-year-old kids, I was home one day having a conversation with my mother. And she said, you've got your wedding coming up. You and Susan need to start looking at an apartment, find a place to live. And it was like a punch in the stomach. And I thought, I'm not going to live in an apartment. I got friends that live in apartments. I'm over at their places a lot, but I have not living in an apartment. And I said to my mother, well, I'm gonna buy a house. And she scoffed at me and says, you can't afford a house. Now, she didn't mean that as in I couldn't as a person do that. She was meaning you're 20 years old, you just started your job. And at that time, interest rates were running 15% for home loans. So those of you that complain about a 3.5 home mortgage, the first one Susan and I had was 14.72%. How's that strike you? But The next couple days later, we went for a drive, and we lived in the northwest suburbs. So we drove through cornfields and went about another 15 miles out into the country. And we came into a small town of about 1,000 people. And Susan asked me, she says, "What are we doing here?" I says, "I just want to see if they're building any homes up here and what it might take to see if we couldn't build one." And sure enough, on the outskirts of town, pushed out into a cornfield, was a T, a road that went out and made a T. The streets were in, the utilities were in, the street lights were in, and a bunch of empty lots for about 20 homes. One home was built, one was being built, another one was just being framed. Now, this is a dead of winter. It's getting dark because we were up there after work one night. And I see there's somebody coming out of the one house being framed. So we drive over and I asked the guy, I said, "Who do I talk to about possibly building a home here?" And he looked at me and he kind of sized me up like thinking, "What are you in high school?" And he says, "Well, that would be me. I'm Ken. I'm the contractor, but you need to talk to Ron, my realtor." And I said, "Well, how do I get a hold of Ron?" He goes, "Well, let me finish loading the truck. Follow me back to my office. We'll get a hold of Ron." So we did. Ron came in, took a look at Susan and I, and had that same look on his face like, "You kids in high school." And they laid out 6 homes. And now the homes at prices then are vastly different than today. You probably have to add a 200 or 300,000 to it. But the base model was 55,000. It was just a simple ranch home, basement unfinished, and the main floor, 2 bedrooms, a bath, kitchen, and living room. And it went up to their 6th model, their top one, which was a 4-level split. And you'd go in on the main floor, half a flight up to 2 bedrooms and a bath, half a flight from the main floor down to a half basement that was unfinished, and then down below the main floor to a full basement that was unfinished. These homes came with a stove, nothing else, no garages. And I said, "Well, we want the 4-level split. That's the one we want." That was 79.9. So from 55 to 79.9. And Ron says, "Well, let's gather all your W-2s, your finances, expenses, and we'll figure out where we can pre-approve you." And now this is back in the day where we didn't email things. We weren't sending things by text. This is hard copies, mailings, requests, driving to places, gathering all this information. Well, we get it to Ron, and we had a meeting with him and Ken a couple weeks later. And we sat down and they laid out everything in front of us and said, "Based on all the conditions, we can approve you for 55,000. Therefore, the ranch model is the home we can build for you." And this is where that intense desire and that goal just becomes an obsession. And I felt that gut punch again. And I thought, "Man, I don't want that house. I want the 4-level split." Now I'm 20 years old, so I'm not some worldly kid. But I'm sitting there and I paused for a moment and I thought my mind was racing. And I looked up and I said, "Well, what if we do all the roofing?" And Ken says, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "We'll put the roofing on, we'll do the decking, we'll lay the tar paper, we'll shingle the entire roof." And Ken says, "You know how to do that? Because you got to pass inspection." And I said, "Yeah, we got friends and family that are contractors. We got the people to do it." So he looked over at Ron, he started penciling it out, and he came up with a number and he goes, "Well, that would bring you down to this, but we're still not anywhere close to getting you to 55,000. So I said, "Well, what if we were to do all the siding, put all the siding on the house?" He penciled it out, came down a little bit lower, still not there. Susan spoke up and said, "Well, what if we do all the painting and staining inside the house?" He kind of nodded, penciled it down a little further. Couple of conversations back and forth. And the last thing was, I said, your houses you build, you provide a full yard of sod. But what if you just grade the yard, leave the dirt, and we'll order sod and buy it and lay it ourselves at some point later. You don't have to worry about the expense of that. He penciled it out and he looked over at Ron. He says, "Well, we're at about 54,000. And I said, "There you go. We're building the 4-level split." And we worked full-time jobs. And over the next 3.5 months, we would get off work and we would drive straight to the house and we'd start hammering nails. Sometimes it was just Susan and I. Sometimes we'd have 2 or 3 friends show up. Perhaps on the weekend with friends and family, we'd have 7 or 8 people. We started putting that house together with the builder. And we were married in June. And exactly 1 month to the day later, we closed in that house. We went and gave them the down payment, which was every cent we had, and got the keys. We drove back to the house. It had just been approved that morning. They had finalized all the steps. We walked into this house, no furniture, nothing on the walls, dirt yard, a stove. That was it. We sat on the floor and I leaned back against the wall and I looked around and I kind of started laughing. And Susan's like, "What's so funny?" And I said, "Well, we're married. We own a home and we don't have a dollar in our pocket." And I reached in my pocket and I'll never forget, I had a dime and a penny. I said, "We have 11 cents at our disposal until payday. Let's head down to your parents' house for dinner." But that's how we started. They turned that intense desire and that goal, we made it happen because we were forcing all of our energies to see it through, a definiteness of purpose. So I ask you, what's holding you back from your dreams, your goals? Do you say to yourself, "I'm too old, I'm too young, I don't have enough money or time or education"? Let me tell you, you couldn't be further from the truth. You're never too old, regardless of what your goal is. You're never too young. Money will find its way to you. You have the time, and it doesn't matter your education level. If it's your goal, it's your goal. And if you allow yourself to focus on your goal with faith, have that positive inner self talk, have an obsessive desire for that goal to happen, you're going to find a way. So there's three types of goals, and I want to go over this real quickly. And the three types of goals, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to do them in A, B, and C. So A-type goals are your current results. It's what's happening in your life today. And whatever you're doing, you're getting your results. You know how to do these things because you're getting the results today. And that's an A-type goal. And a good illustration of this is Bob Proctor tells it. He was doing a seminar once, and during a break, a young man walked up to him and said, "Can you help me with my goal?" Bob said, "I'd love to. What's your goal?" And his answer was, "I want to buy a new," in the conversation, but new Pontiac. But for simplistic sake, in today's world, let's say it's a Lexus. So he says, "I want to buy a new Lexus." And Bob's like, "Lexus is a good car. I've owned a Lexus before." He says, "What are you driving today?" And the young man said, "A Lexus." And Bob went, "Really?" He says, "How old's the car you drive?" He says, "It's 4 years old." Bob says, "How long have you owned it?" And the kid said, 4 years. And Bob said, "So what you're telling me is you bought a Lexus new 4 years ago, and now you want to go get another new Lexus." And he said, "Correct." Bob's like, "That's not a good goal. That's not a goal. You already know how to do that. You can go out and do that today." A goal is to help you grow. And this isn't any kind of a goal that's going to help you grow. So your A-type goals are goals that you already know how to do. Your B-type goals are goals you think you can do, but there's a caveat here. You set conditions around them. You say, if this happens, I think I can hit my goal. If this person does their part, I think I can hit my goal. If this condition resolves itself, I think I can hit my goal. What you've done is you've set a goal that has no inspiration, no growth. There's nothing attached to it that's obsessive for you to grow. And you left yourself an out. As soon as that goal loses its luster and it fades, they didn't do their part. That's why it faded. That's why I didn't hit my goal. Well, that condition never resolved itself. So because of it, I didn't hit my goal. Goals that you think you can hit, they're not good goals either. The goals we want to talk about are what we would say are C-type goals. This is your fantasy. This is what you want. This is your imagination wandering. I want you to think outside the box. And again, what I said earlier, if you think it, you can do it. You see, everything in the world is created twice. First, it was thought in somebody's mind, and then either they or somebody else actually created it. Think about the internet. It's been around for a few years, but for many centuries, it wasn't here. The internet was always here. We just didn't know how to do it, but somebody figured it out. Two bicycle mechanics out of Ohio decided they were going to build a contraption that a man could fly on, the Wright brothers. And everybody ridiculed them. Man wasn't meant to fly. Only birds can fly, but they kept building these prototypes. They went down to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, on the Outer Banks in 1903, and they flew the first prototype, several hundred yards for under 30 seconds, but they flew. And now think about this. 1903 is the very first time man flew. 10 years later, when World War I breaks out, we're having these amazing dogfights with famous people like the Red Baron flying through the sky in biplanes. Less than 60 years later, we're putting men in space. 66 years later, we landed on the moon and brought those two gentlemen back. That's remarkable that we went from not knowing how to fly to landing on the moon in 66 years. It's unparalleled. But see, your goals are your wants. When John F. Kennedy cast the vision of going to the moon, he first sat down with Wernher von Braun, who was considered the godfather of the modern rocket. He designed all the rockets that flew the Apollo space program. And when Kennedy asked Wernher von Braun, what would it take, 1961 now, to send a man to the moon and bring him back? Von Braun thought for a moment and said, the will to do it. What it would take would be the will to do it. Not only did Kennedy say we're going to do it, he put a mandate on it that by the end of the decade, we're going to go to the moon and back. This is 1961, and by 1969, 8.5 years later, we're going to go to the moon and back. And we're right at this point, we're sending a man into space for 15 minutes and bringing him back, and we're cheering our journey. He's talking about we're going to go land on the moon and come back. But we did it. And that a know-how and that intense desire to meet that goal, that focus, that determination made it happen. So you look at your goals and you think, okay, Steve, I set a goal. How do I get started? What do I do next? Well, here's the first thing you do. You set your goal. Set it in your mind. This is my goal. Then what I want you to do is I want you to write it down. I want you to write that goal down. And I want you to put it in your pocket or in your purse and carry it with you, that every time you open the wallet, every time you reach in your pocket, you open your purse, that goal's there looking at you. I would make a few copies of it and post it around, as I said earlier, the mirror, the office, on the computer, on your dashboard in the car. Make it something that you see all the time. And then you need to ask yourself two questions. First one is, am I able to do this? And the answer should be, yeah, I'm able. Am I willing to do this? Am I willing to do what it takes to meet my goal? And the answer should be, yes, I'm willing. Once you say yes to I am willing and I am able, you've turned your theory and your fantasy into a goal. That goal is going to happen. But I want to caution you, you're going to fail along the way. And that's okay. Failure is a part of success. Failure is an expected component of success. You will fail along the way. But the only time you ever truly fail is when you quit. Easiest thing in the world for anybody to do is quit. Regardless of where you live, your economic status, your ethnic status, none of that matters. It's the easiest thing in the world a person could do is quit. Quit a relationship, quit a job, quit a group or a function they're a part of, quit a diet, quit seeing a certain friend. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. You're only a failure if you quit. So go for your goal. Put that growth component together, bury it in your mind. You see, this is how most people look at goals. We live in a world today where everybody wants instant gratification. I want it right now. I want this to happen. I want to set a goal and I want to attain it. I don't want to go through this meandering journey. I want that goal today. As I mentioned, we watched the Super Bowl just a couple days ago, and it used to be all about the commercials. I still try to make it so, but I found the commercials to be rather bland this year. But it wasn't that long ago that FedEx was permeating our airways with a commercial. And the byline was, when it absolutely, positively has to be there overnight. But now here we are a few years later, and people are like, well, I don't want to wait overnight. I want it right now. I can go online right now with Amazon, and they've got depots all around Central Florida. I can order something in the morning and have it here this afternoon. I can go online to Walmart or Target. I can order groceries. I can order products. I can order it today, and they'll deliver it in a couple hours. Food delivery. You can go on to Uber Eats or any of the other sites and have food brought to you in the next half hour. Think about Netflix a few years ago. Everybody was like amazed. You can actually go into this catalog, look through it, get yourself a video and order it, and it'll be here tomorrow by DVD. And you can watch it tomorrow night. But today I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow night. I want to watch a movie right now. So what do? We go on demand, order a movie, sit down and watch it. I'm walking onto a plane. I'm going to go on a 4-hour flight. Be nice to have a couple hour and a half to 2-hour movies. I go onto an app on my phone. I download them. I sit on the plane, and whether it's on my phone, an iPad, or my computer, I watch a couple movies right now, not tomorrow. We're in a world where everybody wants things to happen immediately. But here's reality. This is what your goal is going to look like. You're going to go on a meandering journey. You're going to move around, and you're going to struggle, and you're going to learn, and you're going to fail, and you're going to step back up, and you're going to practice, and you're going to start getting it. And eventually, you're on the top of Mount Everest. You're Mount Everest. You're looking back, and you're proud of the accomplishment, and you're more proud because of that journey, because of the struggles you face, that rough terrain, that difficult weather. But you made it. You got to the top. When you turn your goal into an intense desire, this is what happens. I didn't know this until this year, but I found out this year that the second January of every year is considered Resolution Quit Day or Quitter's Day. This year it happened to be January 12th. And that is that 85+% of people that set a New Year's resolution have given up on it by the second Friday of the new year. And this year, it was not even 2 weeks. 12 days in, they've already given up on it. They've quit. Why? Their goal wasn't real. It wasn't an intense desire. It was a mere passing thought. Oh, it'd be nice to do this. It'd be nice to have this, but they didn't put it into motion the way you have to make your dream come true. So I want to illustrate something here that kind of explains how the thoughts and the goals merge together. And in 1934, a Dr. Thurman Fleet developed this. It's called the stick person. And it's a picture of the human mind. If I were to ask you, what's a human mind look like? Most of you would say, well, it's the brain, but it's not. The human mind lives in every cell in your body. It's in your fingers, it's in your hair, it's in your toes. Your mind is everywhere. And you see, the reason he put this together is because we think in pictures. Remember, I talked about the movie and being the star in the movie of your life, not an extra? We think in pictures. If I walked up to you right now and said, tell me about your living room, how many couches do you have? One or two, or is it a big sectional? How many chairs are in the living room? How many lamps? What kind of furniture is it? Is it leather, cloth? What color is it? Is it multi-design plaid, or is it one solid color? Do you have hardwood floors, carpeting, throw rug? Is there a fireplace? Yes or no? How many windows are in the living room? You see, for you to answer any of those questions, you had to mentally go to the living room in your mind and see that video, and see it in a picture. Probably asked you a few questions. You're like, geez, I don't even know. I got to go look. But you had to think in pictures in order to answer that. And so Dr. Fleet designed the stick person to help us understand how the human mind works. We have a conscious mind. We also have a subconscious mind, and we have a body. And we live through our five senses. We touch, we taste, we hear, we smell, and we feel. And those are the five senses by which we live through. And the conscious mind is our thinking mind. It's where all our thoughts begin. It's also our educated mind. So everything that we've learned, everything that we've studied, we've encountered in our life resides in our educated mind, in the conscious mind. It's where our intellect resides, where we can choose what we want to think or not think. We can accept or reject thoughts. Thoughts can come into our mind and we can say, that's not a good thought, I'm going to reject that. Or that's a good thought, I'm going to accept it. It's where we organize ideas. They first come to us in our conscious mind. Our subconscious mind, however, is our emotional mind. It's where all the emotions and the feelings we have come from. Think of it like an operating system on a computer. It's where our paradigms lie. And a lot of people say, well, what exactly is a paradigm? A paradigm is a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behaviors, and almost 95% or greater of our behaviors are habitual. So when we talk about in order to shape our future, in order to reach for that goal and change our future, we have to be willing, remember the question, we have to be able to overcome our paradigm, overcome those thoughts, those inner negative thoughts we have. So we got to be able to change those thoughts, because in the inner mind, it can only accept. Your subconscious mind can only accept. So if you say to yourself negatively, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I can't do this, I can't make this happen, guess what? That's what's going to happen because that's what's going to your subconscious mind, and that's what you believe to be true. And it also can't differentiate between what's real and imagined. So if you say really stupid things, that I had friends that would say dumb things like, uh, I'm going to go do this or do that to myself, and they mean it in jest, but your subconscious mind doesn't differentiate that. So whatever you say, it's taking it as fact and as real. So when your conscious mind is where your thoughts begin, your thoughts move into your subconscious mind and become feelings. Think about waking up in the middle of the night. You hear a bump in the night. You wake up, the heart's racing, adrenaline's pumping. You're looking around thinking, what was that? Somebody's broken in. You sneak down the doorway and you look around the corner. You're looking down the hall. You work your way into the main room. You see that all the windows and doors seem to be intact. Turn some lights on. You look around. You peer outside and nothing's there. Then you start wondering, did I dream that or did I actually hear that? But that's that thought. Those thoughts turn into feelings, which turn into actions within the body. And those actions become our results. Our thoughts move through our body and come outward in our how we act and how we are towards other people. That's an outward person that people are seeing, your self-image, your self-identity. You see, we're all a mass of energy and we function on frequencies. If you think about every frequency is connected to the one above or below. So if we're operating on frequencies and you're on radio station 88.3 and you go to the radio dial and you want to go to channel 1057, you turn the dial and you work your way up the frequencies until you get on the right frequency. That's exactly how it works with us going for our goals. We're on a lower frequency, we're setting a goal that's up there that we're stretching for, and it sits on a higher frequency. So if in our world our results lie here today and we're wanting to get to this higher frequency, if these lines represent frequency, we want to get to our goal. And the only way we can get there, we have to make an irrevocable committed decision. An irrevocable committed decision means, like Napoleon said, I only see my objective, all obstacles must give way. We are not allowing something to stop us. We're not going to quit. We're not going to take a stab at it. If it doesn't work, we quit. We're not going to try and then, it's too hard, I'm going to quit. If you truly want your goal, you have to make an irrevocable committed decision to move in the direction of your goal. You see, so you're going to ask me naturally, well, how do I get to a higher frequency then? What are the steps I have to take to get where I want to go? If you're looking to make a massive quantum leap forward in your life, and you're looking to attain the things you want, to be a leader, to be an outlier, step out from the crowd, this is where repetition, focus, discipline all come together. So here's what you do, and I would have you write this down. Set your goal. Set that goal in your mind and make it an irrevocable, committed decision. Write your goal out. I would even write it out in the present tense. I would write out my goal and I would just write it out as I am happy and grateful now that, and whatever your goal is. Let me give you an example. Let's say your goal is financial freedom, probably the most admirable goal any person can have. I am so happy and grateful now that I have obtained financial freedom. I can travel at will and purchase anything of my desire. I'm living life to its fullest and able to enjoy everything life has to offer. Something short and sweet like that. Write it out. Put it in your pocket, carry it with you. The next challenge is every morning, get up a little earlier, write out that goal. It may sound a little hokey, but texting it or thinking about it isn't enough. There's a correlation between the mind and the body when you write something out. Write your goal out. Every morning, get up and write it. I've got a little book here. I write it out every day. I've got pages upon pages of my goal. And once you've attained the goal, you make a new goal and you start writing the new goal. I've got several goals in my book. Write it out. Then I want you to visualize that goal. I actually want you to go this far. Set a timer on your phone. We all have smartphones. for every 3 hours, 3 to 5 minutes. Have it go off in 3 hours. And whatever you're doing, just stop and take 3 to 5 minutes and just visualize your goal. Close your eyes. Picture yourself having attained that goal. It's happened. How do I feel? How do I think? How's the world around me? How does it feel to be able to have financial freedom, travel at will, or purchase anything I'd like, do whatever I want? Think of how that feels. Feel that in your body and do that every 3 hours for 3 to 5 minutes. That starts to move that frequency higher and higher. You're starting to get onto the level of the frequency where your goal resides. Especially at night when you go to bed, the last thing I hope you can do is before you fall asleep is visualize your goal. And that's the last thing you're thinking consciously before you fall asleep. Meditation's good. If you want to meditate a couple times a day and just clear your mind for 15 minutes and just silently sit and let your mind be clear, meditation's a great way to ground yourself. But I also want you to start living from your goal. Start today, make your goal right now, and become that person. See yourself as already having obtained that goal. That goal is off in the distance. You don't even know how you're going to get there. Who cares? Start living like the person that's made that goal. How would you think? How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you interact with people? How would you be at work? How would you dress? How would you carry yourself? I want you to come from that goal. I want you to make decisions from that goal. How would I make a decision that's facing me today if I had already attained that goal? How would I make it differently than I would today? By doing that, you have to come back from your goal to move forward towards your goal, if that makes sense. Come back from your goal, making decisions from it that's going to help you move towards it. That's how you begin to set the goal in mind. And the repetition of this act day after day after day after day is going to move you to the frequency to hit your goal. You see, real quickly in recapping self-talk, most people look at the world and they think it's too hard, it's too difficult, I'm just going to do nothing, it's impossible. But the movers and shakers, the people that hit their goals, that find a way, that I am people, that I am going to do this, they look at it like this: just do it. Nothing's impossible. Napoleon Hill, in his book, Think and Grow Rich, says, it takes no more effort to aim high in life, to demand abundance and prosperity, than is required to accept misery and poverty. Think about that. It takes no more effort to seek your goal and seek benefits, abundance, positiveness, than it does to just accept misery and poverty. It takes just the same amount of energy. So if that's all the energy it takes, I certainly want to be thinking of what gives me power. Don't let the past traumas and difficulties hold you back. Don't feel compelled to let everybody know your goal. I want to caution you here. We all have issues from the past. So everybody that wants to tell you, oh, these are all the things that happened to me in the past, let it go. We've all had that. You're not telling somebody something that they haven't faced something themselves. But be careful who you tell your dreams to, because you may talk to a family member who means well, but they say, that's not a good goal for you. You're not that kind of person. You're not meant for that. And pretty soon they're shooting down your dream and they're stealing your dream. You may have a friend, you think it's a friend, but all of a sudden they feel threatened, like you're going to step up above me. You're going to move beyond me. You might find new friends, might find new horizons. I don't want that. I want to keep you close. So they say with ill intent, it's not a good idea. It's not a good goal for you. You don't want to do that. I'd be careful who you share your dreams with. Your dreams are your dreams, and you need to go for them. Let nobody else take it. And whatever's happened in your past, let the universe have it. Give it to the universe, and let that get smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror of life every day. Because if you believe it, you can do it, and you're halfway there. Again, you're not responsible for wars, the government, the economy. There are things out of your control. Let them go. You can't change them. Focus on what's yours. And if you've had bad cards dealt to you in the past, we're starting to write a new story today. It is your responsibility to change when you're aware of it. Only you can change you. Nobody else can change you. And how you respond by how you're thinking is going to alter the circumstances and conditions that are going to help you move towards your goal. Okay? Remember, write your goal, bury it in your mind, tell yourself, I'm willing, I'm able. Set a clock every 3 hours to visualize it. I suggest meditating a couple times a day. Tell yourself, I am going to do this, and go out and do it. I'm going to throw this back over to Susan and let her wrap up the day. I look forward to you tomorrow on day 2. We're going to talk about decisions and the importance of making decisions in your life. A lot of people don't know how to make decisions, and that'll be tomorrow's lesson. Thank you all.
Thank you, Steve. Great lesson. I'm just going to tie it up here a little bit at the end and talk about a couple of things that Steve said that I thought were really important. Failure is never fatal unless you quit. So expect that along the way. There's been a lot of people, successful people, that have had failures in their life, and maybe you didn't know about it. So Oprah Winfrey, she was actually fired from her first job as a TV anchor. They told her she wasn't fit for TV. Oprah. Steven Spielberg, just think of everything Steven Spielberg's done. He was denied from USC Film School 3 times. He finally went to a different school and then dropped out to pursue his directing. And last but not least, because we live in Orlando, Walt Disney. Walt Disney was fired from his job at a newspaper because they told him he had no imagination. Can you imagine if he would have quit? There'd be no Disney World worldwide. Thank goodness he did not. He moved forward. So I think we need to remember that. We need to set a goal. We need to work on it. Don't let anybody else steal your dream. I know you don't know how to do it right now, and that's okay. I'm going to leave you with a Steve Jobs quote. And he said, "We can never connect the dots looking forward. We can only connect them looking back. We just have to trust somewhere in the future that they'll line up." That's all I'm asking you to do today. Write that goal down. Believe you can bring it into fruition. Forget the how and take the first step toward making that goal a reality today. That's it in a nutshell. Join us tomorrow, day 2. Like Steve said, we're going to talk about making a decision to make those goals a reality in your life. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.